This message did not reach you by accident. God has been aligning the exact moment your soul would be ready to hear this truth. And today is that moment. The person who hurt you so deeply, who wounded you in ways no apology could mend, is about to face something they never expected: divine and public karma. You see, chosen one, your suffering was not wasted. Your silence was never empty. Every tear, every unseen prayer, every moment you chose not to retaliate, it was seen, marked, counted. And now heaven is balancing the scales. Today, God is not just exposing what was done in the dark. He is exalting you as the evidence that He is real. While they thought you were broken, you were being built. While they laughed at your pain, heaven was writing a testimony. And now, your very existence answers the world's question: is God still working? Yes, and He's using you as proof. Today, someone will learn the hard way that what they did to you was never unseen. The public will watch what they tried to bury rise up, not to shame you but to free you, because you, chosen one, are the living example that justice doesn't always knock at the door. Sometimes it crashes through it. Heaven is loud today. Your name has been cleared. Your healing is your vindication. Let them watch your peace become your revenge, and remember, you didn't just survive. You were preserved for this revelation. Would you like this message in video script or social media format too? Let's now divide this into 7 divine chapters so you can understand how your life demonstrates that God is real and still acts through you, something that many people find hard to accept. Because this isn't just another video, but a supernatural affirmation that you are the evidence the world has been waiting for. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe before we go any further. Enter 77 in the comments section immediately if this speaks to your spirit. It's a precious indication to heaven that you understand your duty as a walking answer in a world full of questions. And that number is more than simply symbolic. It says to God, I'm awake, aligned, and ready to be used as evidence of your glory. Only those who are genuinely called will complete this message. Those that do, however, will gain spiritual insight, clarity, and a fearless understanding of what they are carrying and why they were selected to bear it. This is a live revelation, not content. A fresh truth will emerge from inside each time you hear it. So don't just listen once. Return as frequently as your soul requires. This is the kind of word that develops with you and shows your true self. It is the response to the world's skepticism that God still exists and works through individuals just like you. Let's take a closer look. Write Amen for angelic protection and contribute with a super thank you up to $20. Chapter 1. You made it through what should have killed you. Let's start with the one that most people don't consider: your survival. God held you while everything was crumbling, which is why you're here now, rather than because everything went well. The things you went through were weighty, not little. Most individuals would be crushed by such encounters. You fought in secret, wept in private, and endured times when no one really understood the burden you were bearing. You're still here, however, despite everything. That is miraculous. It is not typical. You overcame pain that ought to have hardened you, betrayal that ought to have made you resentful, and mental struggles that ought to have left you in a state from which you were unable to recover. You made it through times of scarcity, loneliness, and bewilderment, not because you knew everything, but because something greater than yourself would not let you go. It was God. He was your silent endurance's invisible power. He was the one keeping your spirit together when you thought you were about to crumble. One of the greatest miracles of all is surviving, particularly when no one realizes how difficult it is. People tend to think that miracles are usually large, audacious, and public. You emerged out the fire purified rather than burnt. You didn't just go through it, and instead of just running away, you developed, evolved, and woke up. There were times when you wondered why you were here at all, and felt as if your mind was falling apart. It seemed as if your prayers were unanswered. You were concealed, disregarded, and abandoned as others rose. However, God was working on His most profound project in you, even amid that gloom. He was establishing roots, guarding your soul, and keeping your faith intact. You were learning how to carry your light in dark areas, so you didn't lose it. Write Amen for angelic protection and contribute with a super thank you up to $20. You lost time, chances, and relationships, but you didn't lose yourself. That's where folks get confused. They were aware of the strain you were under since they saw the blows you suffered. However, they are unable to explain why you continue to dream, smile, and love. It is the proof. Your life is a testament to it. People don't need a religious argument to question, where was God during the hard times? They only need to look at you. Your survival is the preaching. Your very life is the solution. Now that you've survived what was supposed to be your death, you're ready to walk in what was always promised to you. And your life amply demonstrates that God was there, because I'm still here. Your destiny was not stopped by the storm. Rather, it prepared you for it. Chapter 2. Your ascent doesn't make sense. If you have been chosen, pause and consider your trip in detail, including the locations God has led you to, the obstacles you have encountered, and the road you have traveled. In the natural world, none of it adds up. There are those who have not gotten to the same level as you, despite having the education, wealth, social standing, and support network. You had mountains, they had a straight road. You had assaults, they had help. But you continue to rise somehow. Your name keeps popping up somehow. Favor always finds its way into places you weren't even expected to be in. The world becomes perplexed at this point, as your rise doesn't match their model. You weren't born into opportunity. You weren't from a wealthy household, and you didn't have a platform, a spotlight, or even a map. You had faith. You had obedience. What you had was a heavenly mission that could only be accomplished. It could not be articulated. They disregarded you, undervalued you, and some even attempted to stop you. But long before anyone had an opinion, God had already spoken over your life. Before anybody knew your name, you were designated for ascension by heaven. They couldn't stop you because of this. They were unaware that God Himself was positioning you and that you weren't relying on them. This ascent you are now experiencing is the consequence of surrender rather than plan or effort. God started to increase your influence when you submitted your will. God started setting up a table for you in front of your adversaries when you opted for humility above publicity. You were faithful, not because you were noisy. You were picked, not because you were flawless. People now stare at you and ask how you're still going, how you're still making progress, and how you continue to go forward, despite everything that was meant to stop you. However, they're posing the incorrect question. It isn't how, it's who. It's the source, and God is the source, not the way. Although rationality is adored by the world, your existence defies it. Since your ascent happened by prayer, fire, private conflicts, and quiet seasons rather than via traditional routes, they are unable to explain it. It happened during the times when God saw your adoration, but no one else saw you weep. And now, God is counting you in as the same people who counted you out watch. Your life speaks for itself. Therefore, you don't need to explain yourself. You are living proof that no plan, no system, and no strategy can reverse the results of God's hand on a person. Your ascent is a foretelling that status is never more important than purpose. Write Amen for angelic protection and contribute with a super thank you up to $20. So, even if they don't understand, keep getting up. Even if they make fun of you, keep following orders. For those who are observing and questioning whether God still selects individuals to bear His authority in this time, Your elevation is not only for you, and they'll know the answer is yes when they see you. Chapter 3. You have a peace. You cannot purchase. Selected one. Let's discuss something uncommon, something strong, something that cannot be purchased with money or created by the world. Your peace. The tranquility you possess is not temporary or superficial. It is not affected by the news cycle or changes based on the people around you. It is rooted in something everlasting and goes deeper than that. You have something steady, something unwavering, while others are swept about by turmoil, fear, and worry. The source of this tranquility, you see, was not material prosperity, accomplishment, or social acceptance or praise. It originated from a close relationship with God. It originated in the wilderness during the times when He was the only one you had with you, during the tears you shed when no one else knew, and during the times when everything around you was crumbling. You found strength in His presence. People attempt to figure out how you continue to show up with grace, how you move gently even after being betrayed, and how you speak life after death has spoken over you. However, they are unaware that your happiness comes from perseverance rather than ease. Your serenity comes from the fire, not from comfort. That calm amid the storm was earned by you. When the cacophony was overwhelming, you found that silence. Where you should have been restless, you found that peace. Even when you were hurting, you continued to praise. When you were poor, you continued to give. And when you were abandoned, you continued to choose to love. That is power, not weakness. The adversary tried everything to shake your soul, but you discovered your center in God, which is why you are a danger in the spirit. Furthermore, nothing outside of a soul can rob it of its rest once it is rooted in God. You are untouchable in ways that the world cannot comprehend because of this tranquility. Because your roots are in who you know, not in what you see. You are not governed by headlines, shook by rumors, or undone by delays. Additionally, whenever someone approaches you, they notice a change. They experience a peaceful power, a serenity, and a quietness that is supernatural rather than natural. At that point, your life starts to speak without using words because tranquility is evidence and the witness. You don't have to explain your steadiness. It protects itself. When others question, "Why aren't you panicking like the rest of us?" your very presence responds, "Because I know who walks with me." You've experienced too much to be unaware of where to turn for assistance, and you have all you need, including serenity, because you know Him. Your serenity is proof that God is not only present but also close by. The next time someone observes your serenity and questions its origin, allow them to examine it more closely, because what they are really seeing is the lingering effects of God's presence on your life. Furthermore, it is impossible to purchase, replicate, or fabricate that level of tranquility. Only the one who is inside you is able to offer it. Chapter 4. What broke you was forgiven. One of the most obvious indications that God is present and at work in your life is your forgiveness, chosen one. People are unaware of what you had to let go of: the manipulation, the betrayal, the falsehoods, and the profound wounds that were repeatedly inflicted. Some individuals injured you severely and pretended nothing had occurred, while others never looked back. But you choose to forgive. What you had every right to keep, you choose to let go of. The holy reality is that you forgave because you were set aside, not because they deserved it. You forgave because holding into that resentment would have ruined the reason God gave you. You did it with God and for your own future, because forgiveness is freedom, not for them. It's strength, not weakness. It's about letting go of the burden so you may rise to what God has planned for you, not about forgetting. You were never meant to move like the world. Yet the world preaches revenge. Make them pay, hold a grudge, cut them off forever. Something greater is carried by you. Your soul, not your body. is the source of your decision to choose release over resentment. It results from walking so intimately with God that you begin to feel His kindness. Not only did you forgive those who expressed regret, but you also forgave those who blamed you, gossiped about you, and pretended that your suffering was nothing. You let it go anyhow. You still opted for peace over retribution. That is supernatural. It is not natural or typical. The opponent is confused by that sort of strength since you used it to your advantage when he gave you pain. You've been shattered and yet showed grace. You've been abandoned and yet remained kind. You've wept and yet offered compassion. And after all of that grief, when someone sees that tenderness in you, they are seeing God. They are feeling a love that this world doesn't teach, whether they realize it or not. They are facing a person who ought to be resentful, but is yet radiant. Your life responds, "This is what grace looks like. This is what God can do to a healed heart. This is what real freedom feels like." When people question, "How is that even possible?" your forgiveness is prophetic, not just personal. It shows a God who continues to rewrite history, repair, and redeem. And since a pure heart attracts heavenly promotion, the more you forgive, the higher He raises you. And the same God who healed you is going to resurrect you, the one who showed forgiveness to those who wronged you. Chapter 5. Facts. Contrary to your faith. You've been the chosen one, and your whole existence has defied expectations. The world saw limitations in your situation. They saw data, drawbacks, gaps, and reasons why you would never succeed. The strength of your faith, however, which defied the evidence, was something they failed to notice. There were times when it was impossible to dispute the facts. There were no resources, no possibilities, closed doors, no assistance, and an atmosphere that did not foster progress. You continued to develop, however. It wasn't because everything was going your way, but rather because your soul wouldn't give up. Something inside you had a belief that was greater than what your eyes could see. Even when your life seemed to be coming apart, you maintained your faith in purpose, healing, and provision before you experienced any of these things. That belief was founded on your relationship with God, not on a fiction. Even though it seemed impossible at the time, you knew that whatever He spoke over your life would happen. You thus proceeded, day after day, step after step, and even when nothing made sense, you continued to walk by faith rather than sight. Though they weren't always audible, your prayers remained constant. Although it wasn't always visible, your devotion was sincere. Even if the natural world told you it was too late, you kept your word. You continued to show up, comply, and have faith. You knew God would accomplish it, even if you didn't know how. What makes you unique is your peaceful assurance and unflinching faith. People believed that your history would dictate your ceiling, and that your tale would conclude where it began. However, your life's roof was torn off by your trust in God. It made room for miracles to happen. You didn't knock on doors, but it unlocked them. Because of who you trusted, rather than who you knew, it put your name in areas you hadn't yet reached. You shouldn't be here, according to the facts. According to the facts, you ought to have gone insane, given up, or quietly passed away. But the facts were subordinated to your religion. Your faith rose higher than barriers and shouted louder than fear. Your life now serves as tangible proof that God hears and answers prayers. People who don't know how you got here are now observing you. The conflict is unknown to them, but they see the fruit. They are unaware of the grind, but they can see the light. When there was nothing solid underfoot, they trusted God to keep you afloat, not realizing that every step you made was a step on water. You believed when it didn't make logic, which is how you ended up where you are now. When God told you to move, you did so without waiting for the ideal moment. The same individuals who questioned you will now be forced to admit that you were guided by a higher power the whole time. Your life, chosen one, is spiritual rather than rational. It is a tale of trust rather than chance. Furthermore, your faith qualified you rather than only carrying you. It cleared the path for destiny to unfold. It constructed a bridge over the shattered areas, and it made a route through the impossibly difficult. Allow the world to attempt to rationalize and justify it. They won't, as your life doesn't follow the laws they believe in. Your life demonstrates that although faith opens the promise, facts may create the difficulty. Chapter 6. You underwent change without losing your identity. Let's take a minute, chosen one, to recognize something most people will never comprehend. It takes heavenly power to endure what you did and not turn into someone you weren't supposed to be. Life made an attempt to alter you, but it was unsuccessful. Success attempted to boost your ego. Loneliness attempted to make you resentful. Betrayal attempted to make you icy, and pain attempted to harden you. But despite everything, you stayed loyal to who you are. Not flawless, but real. Unaffected, but unflinching. You did not grow separate from your soul, but you did grow. You changed, yet you didn't lose your brightness. In the course of surviving, so many people lose themselves. Even though they made it through the storm, they don't look like themselves. They allow pride to take the place of purity. They exchange authenticity for acceptance. However, you took the less traveled route. You answered yes to improving and no to resentment. You allowed God to rewrite your tale, not suffering to change your character. Additionally, He refined your identity rather than removing it. The way you maintained your heart through so many difficult nights has a hallowed quality to it. You were put to the test in private, stretched in secret, and changed without losing your identity.